Microsoft Excel 2003 Data Validation. We've all seen it happen. We have a huge spreadsheet. It's in front of us, and it's time to hurriedly put in some data. But unfortunately, you put in the wrong number or the wrong name, and now it's on your head. Well, with data validation, we can help prevent that from happening. When we take a look at data in this video, we are going to validate whether it should be in there or it shouldn't be there. So we're going to talk about validating the input of data into our cells, and then we'll talk about the difference between warning about it or preventing bad data or incorrect data from being placed into our cells. Whenever we have our worksheet in front of us and we're inputting data, there always is a chance that we might mess it up. We might put something in that's wrong, a wrong formula, a wrong number. Maybe we're supposed to put text instead of numbers. And so Excel gives us the power of data validation. It will validate you. No, I'm not talking about validating your parking ticket or validating whether you're a good person or not, but it can validate whether the data that's going into that cell is supposed to be there or not. So we have here our Acme Inc. PTO availability before we added the logic. And I'm just going to use this one as a good example because if you notice, I've got some social security numbers right here. Now, social security numbers are very exact, right? It's a 3, 2, 4 number combination. You put the first 3, then the second 2, and then you put the last 4. So you literally have a total of nine characters, and if you add the little dashes the way it's appropriately shown. And so I might want to make sure that I put in a correct one and then I don't mistype. Maybe if I typed a 555 12123 and then I didn't add the 4 here. By the way, all of these are not legitimate social security numbers. Please don't try to use them for yourself. And you can see that I could make a mistake pretty easily by typing in something wrong as I continue down. So what I can do is I can select the area where I'm going to be inputting. Maybe we'll come on down here a little bit more. Maybe we're going to hire some more employees. And so I'm going to select this range. I could select the column if I want to. And I could say, I want to only have social security numbers be typed in. And I want to make sure everyone, number one, knows it, that they need to do it. And number two, I want to make sure that if they do try to put something else in, it won't go in. So I come up to data. And notice I have an option, validation. No problem, I click that, and here comes the data validation dialog box, and it says, what are your settings? Do you want to allow any value? Well, that's pretty much what we have set by default, right? What if I want to only have a whole number? Or I can do decimals and lists and dates and times and text length and custom. I can do a whole bunch of different things and make it, very exact if I want to. What I want to do is probably make it a text length. And I want data to, be between or equal to, because I want it to exactly equal the social security number that I have right there. And so I can say I want the length to be, let's see, a social security number is 9 characters. Okay, or nine numbers. Actually, it's 11 characters if you include the dash. So I'll use 11 for my length. So when I do this, it says, all right, here's your length. What is going to be, and I will ignore blanks. I won't fire up a warning sign or validate a blank. If there's nothing in there, it won't go, hey, warning, you haven't correctly inputted what you need to input. My input message is when you select the cell, there's going to be an input message. I can turn this off if I want, but I'm going to go ahead and tell everyone that this is a SSN, a social security number here in the States, and I put in, you must enter a valid social security number with dashes. So that is going to be the input message. Then I can come up here to error alert and say, okay, if I do something wrong, what are you going to do? I can stop where it won't allow me to do anything. I can warn, it'll go boop and say, hey, sorry, are you sure you don't want to do this? And then information where I can just say something like, typically you should put 11 characters in for your social security number. Now I know this is kind of a strange example, but let's go ahead and say we don't want anything that's besides that. And the title would be invalid SSN. And you can say you must input a valid SSN and put example 55512. I've got to put dashes 12 dash 1212. And that's just an example one. There really isn't one, hopefully, out there. So I have these settings now in place. The text length is equal to 11 because that's how much they have. The input message is an SSN. You must enter it so that way I'm telling the people what I need to put in. And then if there's a mistake, it's going to stop it, won't let me go on, and then it will tell me what my mistake is. So I click OK, and if I'm not selected on it, I select on over here and on Jeremy and on the number, it doesn't do anything. But watch what happens when I select on this cell. It tells me it's an SSN. You must enter a valid social security number with dashes. Okay, so I start typing in 123 dash 12 dash 1231. We'll just guess that that's it. So I hit the over arrow and yep, it accepted it. So I'm good to go. Now it says you must enter a valid social security number with dashes. Okay, well let's say I make a mistake. 123 dash 12 dash 12. And I try to tab off, or I'll just hit enter. Either way, I'm getting off of it. It will give me a little noise or whatever error, and it gives me an invalid SSN error. Stop. You can't proceed any further. You must input a valid SSN. For example, 555-12-1212. And it will allow me to retry, or I can cancel out. I'm going to go ahead and retry, and this gives me a chance to say 123-12-1234. I then hit enter, and this time it accepts it because that is a valid social security number format that I've placed into this particular cell. So let's give you another example of how we can use this data validation. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, how in the heck can I turn this off? Well, because if you click on all this, you can notice that a lot of this is a valid social security number, and this entry, this input entry, shows up everywhere. Well, what I can do is I can go ahead and select all of the range that I have, and if I forget, like how many of these did I put the data validation on? If I forget, when I come up to data and hit validation, it would have told me, hey, do you want to add all the data validation to those particular cells? In this case, no, that's fine, and I selected this. If you see all of the stuff that I have here, the input message, the errors alerts, all these things, I can come in and I can hit the clear all. I can hit the clear all, and this is going to then clear. It's going to allow any value. The input message won't be anything. The error alert is nothing. I don't, because right now we have any value. So once I hit clear all and it clears all that, and I click OK, you can see that now it says, oh, okay. Now if I come over here and I type in 12-123-674, watch what happens. I hit enter and it's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care because I don't have the data validation set. So let me go ahead and clear the information that I have in this particular cells because I don't really need it right here. Now let's go ahead and let's say that I wanted to make sure that only certain numbers between a certain number were allowed to be inputted into maybe the PTO that is given, the paid time off. Because understand, if I have paid time off, I probably have a range where even if you were just hired, you get maybe 5 days off a year. But yet if you've been with the company for over 5 years, maybe you get 10. And then if you've been over even more, you can get more. But it's still a range, and I don't want to give too much or give too little. It has to fit within the range. So what I can do is go ahead and highlight this area right here. I'm going to come up and hit Data, Validation. And again, it has the any value right here. But this time, I'm going to want a whole number, and I want the data to be between, now the minimum, and of course if I hit the collapse, it's just going to say, so I can look at what I have here. And I'm going to say anything, the whole number, between, we'll say 5, okay, and the maximum we give people off is 2 weeks of paid time off, so that's 14 days. So anywhere from 5 which is 1 work week, all the way up to 2 full weeks of paid time off. So here it's going to be a whole number between 5 and 14. Now when it says whole number, watch what's going to happen when I try to put in some of these fun things. Now the input message, I don't want an input message. I don't want to put an input message on this one this time. And instead I'm going to do an error alert, and this time I'm just going to do a warning. And I'm going to type in, invalid number, and then I'm going to say the number should be between 5 and 14 years. So what I can do is now, instead of just stopping and never letting them put in it, maybe there's a, as part of a package deal, when I hired somebody, I said, well, you get 16 days. Well, I'm going to at least warn myself or the HR person that, hey, you're kind of going into an invalid number range, but it'll still allow you to proceed. So I click OK. And now that is now valid. Now, remember, I'm clicking here. I don't see that input message. It doesn't show up. But I'm going to go ahead and type in, we'll put in 6 and scroll down. Okay, 6 is valid. I'm going to put in 14. That's a valid number. I'm going to put in 8. That's a valid number. Now I'm going to try to put in an invalid number. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put in 16. And this time I hit enter. This time it says, hello, the number should be between 5 and 14 years. Continue. Now I can say no, and it'll take me back, or I can click yes, and looky there, it still kept the number. So data validation is not only about stopping somebody from putting some numbers in, it's also about validating whether you want to do something or not and allowing it to happen, but at least you're warning somebody before it happens. And so again, if I put something like a 4 in and I hit enter, it gives me the same invalid number, but if I say no, it will allow me to come back and change the number right in the same cell, and now this time it says, yay, that's a happy number. We're okay, and we'll allow that to be in place. Now again, this all deals with the data validation that we have set up for these particular cells. If I wanted to turn that off, again, I come up to data, up to validation, and then I can merely hit clear all. Clear all. And so there's many different things that I can do here, but again, it's all about making sure I'm putting the right amount of information or the right numbers or the right type of text or content into the particular cells. Now remember, I said that I also had a particular setting, whole numbers. It's not only what the minimum and the maximum is, it's also a whole number. So if I go ahead and click OK, and I come back here, now I could pick a number. It says between 5 and 14. Well, what if I put in 10.2? Now 10 is a number between 5 and 14, but I didn't make it a whole number. I added 10.2, or maybe I'm being funny and I say you get a half a day, 10 and a half days for Frank, for his being here since December of 2000. When I hit enter, it's going to give me that invalid number, but this time it just says the number should be between 5 and 14 years. Continue. That is why it's so very important that if you do make certain settings, that your error messages reflect exactly what you're looking for. In this case, I would say cancel. I would go ahead and highlight all of this for my data validation, data, validation, and this time on my error alert, I would say the number should be between 5 and 14 years, and it must be a whole number. Now, whenever I make a mistake and type in something that's not a whole number, I'll know it's not only because I typed it outside of the number range of 5 and 14, it also could be because it has to be a whole number. So let me go ahead and click OK. And this time when I come over here and I type in 10.5 and I hit enter, it says the number should be between 5 and 14 years and it must be a whole number. Continue. And we'll just go ahead and hit yes, and now it'll input it right there. And so we're okay. It's already set up. Now, if you have any problems with that, you can always go back and check what it is you set up for your data validation, clear it out, and start over again. So if I come up to data and validation and I say, well, I didn't want whole numbers, I wanted something different, you can go ahead and literally say no, decimal, or a list, or whatever it is you want to change it to, and you'll be okay. In this case, we'll go ahead and clear all, so we get rid of it, click OK, and now it doesn't matter what number I type in, whether it's a 1 or a 2, it won't bark at me and won't warn me, won't stop me, because I'm not putting data validation in place on those particular cells. So in this video, we saw it was all about making our data feeling validated. You're such good data. No, I'm just kidding. But what we did find out is we can validate whether the input is going to be correct according to the parameters that we placed. And we can also make sure that we just warn somebody. We can say, are you sure you want to put that in? Versus prevent, where we can stop somebody from putting in data that is not valid. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.